Hello, this is Brian. Today is Tuesday, June 14th, 2022. I am in Rancho Penasquitos in San Diego, in Penasquitos Canyon Preserve. Today it is time for a Spotlight on Shrubs episode. Today we are going to focus on the Nuttall or coastal scrub oak, and that is this here. This is Quercus dumosa. It is a small semi-deciduous to fully evergreen shrub in the Beech family, the Fagacae, like all oaks, and it is a member of the white oak group. So what we have here is a large shrub, occasionally reaching to near tree size in some shadier canyons. Quite common in the coastal portions of the local canyons in San Diego. And it goes up from Baja through portions of coastal San Diego County. And I believe it also shows up again near the city of Santa Barbara, Quercus dumosa. It is one of our many types of scrub oaks that are often extremely confused with other types of scrub oaks or other species. Now, many years ago, these scrub oaks were all placed as Quercus dumosa. So in old texts, you're going to hear about the widespread Quercus dumosa all through southern central California, even up in the foothills of the Sierras. All of those scrub oaks have been broken up into different species. So the coastal scrub oak, Quercus dumosa, is the one that kept the name dumosa. It was also broken up into Quercus berberidifolia, the California scrub oak, and also into a hybrid scrub oak that's very similar to both berberidifolia and Quercus dumosa, which is Quercus acutidens, which is the Torrey's hybrid oak, which is purportedly a hybrid between Engelmann Oak and Muller scrub oak. Muller scrub oak being found mostly on the desert draining slopes of the Southern California mountain ranges, and Engelmann Oak on the inland coastal foothills and lower mountains here in Southern California. So if they're all so similar, how do you tell them apart? And that's where it kind of gets kind of tough. A lot of times you're going to need a really good magnifying lens or even a microscope to look at the hairs on the undersides of the leaves of these scrub oaks, so you can tell what you're looking at. Now, Quercus dumosa, the coastal scrub oak, can usually be told apart from the other scrub oaks. Usually. And that is done by looking at the undersides of the leaves. You don't really need a super big hand lens, or I'm not even using a hand lens at all to analyze this. But the undersides of the scrub oaks, the different species of scrub oaks, have these hairs called trichomes, and a lot of times those are used as diagnostic features to separate what kind of scrub oak you're looking at. Well, how I could tell that this is actually Quercus dumosa is that the undersides of the leaves have the highest quantity of fuzziness, or the highest amount of hairiness. So if you look under one of these leaves, you'll see that they are very conspicuously hairy underneath. They're not so hairy that they're very felt-like, but you'll notice a very dense coating of very fine hairs underneath these leaves. And that's how you can tell that this is Quercus dumosa. Quercus cornelius-mulleri often has a lot of fuzziness under its leaves, but that is a much further inland scrub oak and generally does not come this far to the west. And the leaf shapes are quite a bit different on cornelius-mulleri. They're usually a bit larger and they're kind of curled down a little bit. The leaves on these scrub oaks are still quite variable. This specimen here has very small leaves that are half of an inch at most on most of the leaves. Except some of these leaves here are closer to 3/4 of an inch in the shade of the understory of the plant. So if you look carefully, you can see this right here is a developing acorn. That is a developing acorn on this scrub oak. So these used to be female flowers that were fertilized by wind pollination. So that is a developing acorn. And their acorns are usually pretty small, usually about that large. This one right here is also a coastal scrub oak. It's also called Nuttall scrub oak, Nuttall''S. So that's one of the common names. They will typically just call it coastal scrub oak. Again, very conspicuously hairy underneath the leaves. The tops of the leaves also have noticeable trichomes or hair. So if you hear me say trichome, I'm talking about a leaf hair, the hair of the leaf. So this one has larger leaves. The leaves are up to about 3/4 to maybe 1.5 inches long, but they're very similarly shaped. They're very round, oval, kind of wavy surfaced. And the leaves usually have spine teeth on them, especially on the larger leaves. Smaller leaves might have some teeth on them as well. Occasionally they'll have shallow lobes, very shallow lobes on the occasion. But you'll notice that the leaf size and the leaf shape is quite variable, and that is one of the reasons why this plant is so difficult to separate from other scrub oaks. Because the leaves on scrub oaks are so variable and so confusing. But again, we're relatively close to the coast, so that eliminates Quercus cornelius-mulleri. Quercus acutidens generally has much larger leaves, also has a fair amount of trichomes underneath, but not as densely covered as in Quercus dumosa. Quercus berberidifolia, another very similar oak, also doesn't quite have the fuzziness underneath. Now, both acutidens and berberidifolia can also grow by the coast too. So, your most likely confusion will be between Quercus dumosa, Quercus acutidens, and Quercus berberidifolia. But again, the fuzziness on the underside of these leaves is so much more conspicuous. That's how I can tell that I'm looking at a Quercus dumosa. And size-wise, they're typically shrubs, and they can be quite small shrubs in the most exposed areas. However, these can occasionally reach up to 15-20 feet tall and form small arborescent, almost like trees. So, like the other scrub oaks, the twigs are gray, kind of like medium gray. It's a very twiggy, leafy shrub. As you can tell, it forms a quite dense canopy. And then, I'm being careful because I know inside of that first thicket I was showing you, there was some poison oak growing inside of there. But then eventually, the bark becomes kind of flaky and furrowed, and that's very common in our scrub oaks. Another feature that I do not use usually to tell them apart. So I'm going to try to reach in here without touching any poison oak because there's some growing in here. As you can see, the bark is flaky and furrowed as you go lower down. So great places to see Quercus dumosa here in Penasquitos Canyon on both south and north facing slopes. A lot of that along the canyon wall is at least, probably, a lot of this Quercus dumosa, potentially mixing with Quercus berberidifolia and potentially Quercus acutidens. I believe Quercus acutidens is more numerous in the San Diego area than Quercus berberidifolia. And the reason why I have not done a spotlight video on Quercus berberidifolia or Quercus acutidens is because my confidence level in separating those two is still very low. I do have seen lots of Quercus scrub oaks that do look like that I would be almost willing to bet money are acutidens. And those tend to have the larger leaves of the scrub oak groups. But Quercus berberidifolia and dumosa, their leaves can be quite small, and they can be quite variable. But again, we're talking about the other features of this plant. Is its flowers are these little these male flowers are these dangling catkins. See if I can find some little specimens here. Might not be too many left. These right here, these are the old dangling male catkins. Those are the male or pollen-bearing flowers. They're small and they dangle and they come out usually late winter, early spring, for as the new leaves are starting to develop, and then they fertilize the female flowers, which become these little acorns. Being that this is a white oak, in this section Quercus, they also ripen in one growing season. So these acorns started off this spring of 2022, and they will ripen by this fall, in fall 2022. So these acorns will be ripening this year. There's the old acorn cup, so you can get kind of a perspective of what the acorn size might be. They're not really large acorns. You can see the acorn cups are quite small. See right there in the center of the screen is an acorn cup. The acorns are quite small, and again, being a white oak, they ripen in one growing season. So they're fertilized this spring, they'll mature this fall. So habitat for scrub oak, well, it can be quite variable. Scrub oak typically is found in chaparral. So scrub oaks are typically found in chaparral. All of our scrub oaks basically, but they can also be found, Quercus dumosa can also be found in coastal sage scrub sometimes, which is where I was coming from, was more of a coastal sage scrub stand. And very dense north-facing slope chaparral can be covered in very dense, very tall, lanky, sometimes even almost tree-sized specimens. A lot of those are going to be your scrub oaks. A lot of those are going to be scrub oaks up there. And then sometimes they get established in the understory of woodlands and forests, sometimes near creeks and stuff. So when you're out in the chaparral near the coast, good places to find it. I did get a little distracted about that. Torrey pines, state reserve, both the regular portion and the inland portion will have Quercus dumosa. The inland portion probably also has Quercus acutidens. I've seen some very large leaf scrub oaks there. Right here, you can get to the trails that go on the north sides of Penasquitos Canyon, you'll probably see a lot more of it. But then there are some on the south slopes too. Further down, there are some populations growing with chamise and other sage-grouse and chaparral plants. And then coastal parts of San Diego County, northern Baja, local urban canyons, some of the smaller urban canyons like San Clemente Canyon and Tecolote Canyon have them as well. And then it's supposed to be found up by near Laguna Niguel. So those are some great places to find it. And again, there's supposed to be a population of them in coastal Santa Barbara County near the city of Santa Barbara. So that's going to do it for my spotlight on shrubs with Quercus dumosa, the much confused scrub oak of California. Hopefully that was helpful, at least being able to pick out at least Quercus dumosa from the lineup. I'll see you on another episode. Thanks for watching.